Hello, I'm Charles from Charles in Photography. In today's video tutorial, I'm going to show you how we captured this nice little dandelion flower with our camera and some macro extension tubes to get this picture here. Now this picture was taken using a combination of the 2x and 3x macro extension tubes onto my kit here. Now as you can see, the flower is very small, and on the video at the moment you can actually see the flower quite well defined. But if we try to take a photo of it at the moment, there is not enough light for us to take this photo. So I'm using my little Lume Cube here to illuminate the flower, and at the moment it's only on 1 power. So we have to increase the lighting output here up to 9x power to actually be able to photograph our dandelion flower and have a separation of our background. So now I'm going to turn on the Lume Cube to its power setting. Now you can see how bright it is now, but this is the amount of light we need to be able to capture it indoors. If we were outside, we probably wouldn't need this much light. But if we were in a forest setting, then we would probably need this amount of light. And although I'm using a Lume Cube, you could actually use a flash gun if you're in the forest, or just using your mobile phone and using the flashlight from the camera. So today I've got the Nikon D7500 with the Nikon 18 to 140mm lens at 140mm. Now the reason it's at 140 is we want to get as close to the dandelion flower as possible. But as you can see, there is quite a bit of distance here. There's actually about 23 centimeters. This is the minimum focus that I can get with this lens at 140mm to the dandelion flower. And as you can see in the photo here, it's actually quite a bit away. We would need to heavily crop into our dandelion flower if we wanted a lot of detail. But using extension tubes, we can get much closer even with the camera this far away. To give you an idea, this is what happens if I put the 2x extension tube. Now I put on the 3x. Now I combine the 2x and the 3x to give me 5x magnification, and this is the photo I get. So now you can see this is my setup. I have the 2x and the 3x extension tube connected to give me 5x magnification on my lens. And now instead of being 22 centimeters away from the dandelion flower, I am only 17 centimeters. With these extension tubes, and this is the beauty of macro photography, we can get much closer in. So now let's set up the camera. First we start with the shutter. Because we're indoors and all that, and also because we're so close in, it's so easy to get a bit of vibration that I don't like using the shutter button. And also I find that even using the 2-second delay will give us a little bit of vibration sometime. So I prefer to use just a shutter remote like this. And the reason these are great is because I can now use the mirror lockup function. Mirror lockup means that it's a 2-stage activation. The first time you press the shutter, the mirror goes up and the sensor is open. And you normally count 2 or 3, which means you're looking at around 1.5 seconds, and then you press it again so that you don't get any sort of vibration. And I will show you how this works. So we put the little shutter remote in here. We are on mirror lockup. Now, listen. 1, 2. So the first one, the mirror goes up. Second time we press, the photo takes, and the mirror comes back down after the photo's taken. So now we have our shutter taken care of. Now let us set the rest of the camera up. Now we have white balance. Now I prefer to use either in the presets, sunny or daylight, or if you're shooting in manual white balance, using around 5000 to 5100 kelvins. The reason being is that I'm using a Lume Cube and it's cooling my dandelion flower, because outside in the sun it was had a slight brownish tinge. With the Lume Cube here, it's actually making it a little bit too whitish. So setting the white balance at around daylight is just going to warm that dandelion flower a bit. Now, the next one is aperture, our f-stop. Now, the minimum on this camera is f5.6. And this is where sometimes people shooting macro have a misconception. They'll say, well, I want the least amount of depth of field, so I will shoot at around f5.6. But when you're so close to your subject like this, you actually want more depth of field, because at that range, you'd only have a couple of millimeters of depth of field. So the ideal, if you're using a kit lens with macro extension tubes, is to use around f8 to f11. If you are using a macro lens, you would probably be going at around f16. These lenses are designed, they will take that sort of aperture. These lenses, you end up with problems if you go above f11. So we stay on a safe bet and we set it to f11. Then we have our shutter speed. Now, I don't want too much of a low shutter because I don't want any sort of vibration or movement. So the camera is actually set at the moment to 1/80th. I wouldn't go below 1/60th. I would like shooting between 1/60th to 1/100th. So I've settled on 1/80th of a second. The last one is ISO. Now you might want to think, why do you set your ISO last? Well, because my f-stop is very important and my shutter speed is very important. So I set the f-stop first, then I set my shutter speed, then I can control the amount of light that is coming into the camera with my ISO. Now, all of this I am doing on my manual setting, not on shutter priority, not on aperture priority. I like controlling everything, so it's much easier just to use the manual setting on your camera. So now, all we do is we set our ISO, which at the moment is set to 100. We can take a photo. Now, that is very dark. So we'll increase the ISO to 160. Now that looks much better. But what I'm seeing is actually a blurred image because the camera is not in focus, because I've actually used the extension tubes. Now, when we're using extension tubes, we cannot use, especially on my camera here, it will not autofocus. And also because our focus range is so small that it's best just to use your focal ring here. You set the camera to manual focus and then you adjust your focus with the focal ring here. So this is what we're going to do now. So I use live view and I zoom in because you actually want to see a lot of detail. So we zoom in and we try to get things in focus. There, that's beautiful. So I've actually zoomed in about 200%, maybe even 300%. So I'm actually seeing very close to the center. So now I take it off live view. Wow, we have such a great image. Now also, the way our photo comes out also depends on our lighting, where we put our light. So can you see here, I've actually got this light. It's around a 30-degree angle shining down. The reason I do this is because if it was coming in from the front, I would actually be lighting the background as well. But I don't want that. I actually want a fairly darkish background. And normally when the sun's outside, if you're photographing outside in the sun rarely comes from the front or directly from the top. It's normally on an angle somewhere. So what I'm trying to do is like mimic what it would look like outside. And this is where a lot of the artistic value in your photographs can come in. Adjusting the focal range and all that is one thing, but this is where you can really change the way your photo looks. At the moment it's like this, so I could have it on the left side or on the right side. For this video it's on the left side here, just so that you have a good idea of the way my camera is set up. But I can also set up from the top. But before we move the light, what we're going to do, now that we can get much closer, we're actually going to bring the whole kit much closer so that we only see half the flower. So we're only going to see from about the center to the top, and the flower is actually going to take up the full width of the frame. So now let's do this. So as you can see, I've zoomed in and I've moved all my gear. Now the front of the lens is only about 6 centimeters away from the front of the dandelion flower. That is about this much. So now we'll just make sure that it's in focus. I've got it on live view. We zoom in a bit. There, that's good. We take it off live view and we take a photo. Now I haven't adjusted any of my settings. Beautiful. Now the reason I didn't adjust any of the settings is because my lighting didn't change. All I did was just come in closer. There is no need to adjust the lighting because I'm using artificial light on the dandelion flower. So you can see, and I'll put a photo here, you can see how nice it looks. Now, it's actually on an angle here. Now I will show you how, if we're changing the way the light is coming down, how our photo can change. So I will actually now take the light and I'll place it on top. So now you can see I've actually set up the Lume Cube is directly on top of the dandelion flower. Now we will take a photo without adjusting any of our setting. It's very different. You can see it here. Can you see that the background is black? Why is it black? Because the light is coming from on top. Before, when it was coming from a side, this background here is a bit beigey, so it's actually coming in like a little bit of a dark greenish color. But now with the light directly on top, we are blocking the background out. This shows you that changing the light direction can do wonders for the type of creative photo that you'd like. So what would happen now if we actually put the light underneath our dandelion flower? Because let's say that you're in the forest on a walking trail and you see a nice mushroom, and mushrooms have got sometimes a very nice detail fins underneath it. So you might want to highlight that. So we'll actually move the Lume Cube now and set it from underneath to give you an idea of how the light changes things. So now we will take a photo. You can see the Lume Cube's underneath, but because we're photographing the top, we mightn't get what we're after. So we'll still take a photo. Now I can see, and you can see it here now, that the top is quite dark, but we could see just at halfway that there's light there. So really we would have to lower our camera to highlight just the bottom. So we will do that now. So as you can see, I've actually lowered the camera. Now we're shooting on a slight angle up. The Lume Cube is underneath the lens and we're actually shooting up. Now I wish I had a mushroom to show you, but we're only going to be practicing on the dandelion flower. I haven't adjusted any of the camera settings. The light is still at the same output and we'll take a photo. So as you can see from this image, the photo changes dramatically because now the light is coming from underneath. So now, just before we finish off this tutorial, I'll actually move the camera back slightly so that we've actually got the whole flower in the image, and then we'll actually adjust the lighting in the 3 positions to give you an idea what the whole flower of the dandelion would look like with these 3 lighting settings. So now we've actually moved the camera back to where it was at the start. We're about 22 centimeters away with the light underneath, and we will take a photo. That is great, and in the photo here that I put up, you can actually see how the light comes in from underneath. Now we will change it for the light to come on top. So now you can see the light is on top. There's no need to check our focus. We haven't moved the camera. We will just take a photo. Wow, that is so different to the last one. So for the final thing, we'll move the light back where it was, around on a 30-degree angle on this side. So now you can see we've actually put the light back where it was roughly at the start, around on a 30-degree angle, and we'll take the last photo. So now we have 3 different types of lighting with 3 different results. And you can see here, this is the one with the lighting underneath. This one here, the lighting on top. The last one, the lighting on the side. This is not that hard to do, and you could do this anywhere you like. But even if you're in the forest, I always tell people, like I told in the first video tutorial that I did when I shot the little spider with the macro extension tubes not far from here on a bush track, that it always pays to use a tripod. The reason why I tell people this is that when you use a tripod, you're forcing yourself to slow yourself down. You're not rushing your shot. When we're doing macro, nothing is moving. So there's no need to rush our shot. We can take our time, make sure that everything's set up. Even if there's a few people walking past, it's not a big deal. You can just take your time and get a really nice photo. Now, yesterday when I was setting all this up, I'll show you now a very small clip. What is beauty about with macro as well is that a lot of modern cameras you can actually video as well. And I took a very short video. There was this very small little insect about 3 millimeters long. And you'll see it now in the video when I had the lens only about 6 centimeters away. And you'll see a couple of photos of this little insect. And now you can see, look at this video of this little insect on the dandelion flower. Now there's no way that with a normal lens I could get that much detail of this little insect that was about 3 to 4 millimeters long. So can you see all the possibilities that are opened up to you? You don't have to go out and spend $600 to $1,000 on a macro lens when you're just starting out. Photography doesn't have to be expensive. Now, some people say that the 18 to 140 millimeter Nikon lens is a kit lens. It's only called a kit lens because a lot of time it's actually sold with this camera or with its predecessor, the Nikon D7200. But it is a great lens as long as you don't shoot it at its narrowest aperture, which at 140mm would be f5.6. But once you open it up to around f8, you'll get great photos from it. So I really hope that this video has helped you to learn more about macro photography. If you've liked the video, give me a thumbs up or subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Charles for Charles and Photography. Bye for now.